Today, I'm taking you inside a cemetery that started as a place rooted in the Jewish community, but over time, it became home to a very different kind of Hollywood history. Actors, comedians, producers, singers, inventors. Some of them shaped the way movies looked, sounded, and felt. This is Hillside Memorial Park. So one of the first names I recognized here was Leonard Nimoy. And most people know him as Spock from Star Trek. You know, the ears and the Vulcan salute.
Odors cannot travel through the vacuum of space.
He became one of the most iconic characters in science fiction history. And obviously, Leonard Nimoy gave him that depth. But Nimoy's relationship with Spock was complicated. He was proud of the character, but he also spent years trying to prove he was more than one role. Leonard Nimoy died in Los Angeles in 2015 at 83. His final message said, "A life is like a garden. Perfect moments can be had, but not preserved, except in memory." Another name that stood out for me was Larry King. And you know, Larry King wasn't a movie star, but for decades, he was one of the most recognizable faces on television.
What is it like to be shot?
He pretty much interviewed everyone on the TV atmosphere, and he was very popular for wearing those suspenders and glasses all the time. For 25 years, he hosted Larry King Live. Larry King died in Los Angeles in 2021 at 87, after a lifetime of asking questions. Larry King, broadcast legend and extraordinary father, will be right back after this message. The next story is Max Factor. And you know, Max Factor was not a movie star either, but he pretty much helped create what movie stars look like. You see, before Max Factor, makeup for film didn't really work. Movie stars wore theater makeup that was super heavy, and under studio lights, it cracked and looked unnatural. So Max Factor, he created makeup specifically for movies. Products designed for close-ups, lighting, and eventually colored film. So in a way, he just didn't sell makeup. He helped invent Hollywood glamour. He died in Beverly Hills in 1938 at 66. And something that I noticed here is that he was not buried alone. It feels like every family member is buried around here. Now, a very different kind of Hollywood legend is Moe Howard, because most people remember him as the guy with the bowl haircut, slapping, poking, and yelling his way through the Three Stooges. But behind all that chaos, Moe was the one holding everything together. He helped build one of the longest running comedy teams in Hollywood history. On screen, he was the angry one. Off screen, he was disciplined, focused, and serious about the craft. Moe Howard died in Los Angeles in 1975 at 77. He left behind a kind of comedy that was loud, ridiculous, and impossible to forget. Now we're going from comedy to glamour with Charisse. Charisse, she was an amazing dancer, but she didn't just dance, she completely took over the frame. You know, in Singing in the Rain, she appears for just a few minutes, but that moment became unforgettable. Charisse died in Los Angeles in 2008 at 87, but her legacy is still there. So above her, we can find Tony Martin. You know, Tony Martin was her husband of 60 years. And Tony Martin was one of those classic Hollywood voices. He had a long career in music and film. So Tony Martin died in Los Angeles in 2012 at 98. And he's right here, next to Sid. Moving on, we find Dinah Shore. Miss Dinah Shore, she had the kind of voice and presence that made people feel like they knew her.
Things and buttons and bows.
In the 1940s, she became one of the most popular singers in America. But she didn't stop there. She also became a major television personality. And she was also known for ending her shows by blowing a kiss to the audience, which was very rare. Dinah Shore died in Beverly Hills in 1994 at 77. Okay, now let's change the tone again. because now I found David Janssen. And you may not know his name right away, but in the 1960s, he was everywhere. He played Dr. Richard Kimball in The Fugitive. Now, the show became a phenomenon, and its final episode was one of the most watched in television history. Sadly, David Janssen died in Malibu in 1980 at only 48. Now, some legends here were not actors at all, like Friz Freleng. I was really looking forward to see this one, because if you ever laughed at Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, or Porky Pig like me, he was one of the reasons why. You see, he helped shape the golden age of animation. He was also one of the creators for the Pink Panther, another iconic character. Friz Freleng died in Los Angeles in 1995 at 88. And Sheldon Leonard is one of those names that surprises you. You see, Sheldon Leonard was probably the most influential creative person in American television in the late 50s and 60s. He was a producer for The Andy Griffith Show and even The Dick Van Dyke Show. And if you still don't know who he was, the creators of The Big Bang Theory named both of his protagonists after him. They called one of them Sheldon and the other one Leonard. Sheldon Leonard died in Beverly Hills in 1997 at 89. Now, behind many stars, there was always someone like Jerry Weintraub. And he was not the star, but he knew how to create one. He organized tours for Elvis, Sinatra, Led Zeppelin, then moved into film, producing The Karate Kid and Ocean's 11. So many big ideas brought to life.
Show business is a business.
He died in 2015 at 77. Now, I'm gonna go deeper on this one because it's one of the most complicated legacies. I'm talking about Al Jolson. Al Jolson in the 20s, he was one of the biggest entertainers in America. And that is because he's the star of The Jazz Singer.
Wait a minute, I tell you, you ain't heard nothing.
The first film with sound. And if you happen to go to film school, you know this moment changed Hollywood forever. So he's a big name, but sadly his legacy also includes, moments with blackface, which is a very painful part of entertainment history. So yeah, there's that as well, which is a little controversial. Standing here, this is one of the largest graves in the entire cemetery because it's massive. And to be honest, this is actually the largest grave I've seen in Hollywood. You can even see it from the street outside the cemetery. Al Jolson died in 1950 at 74. And when you see a story like Al Jolson's, well, you realize Hollywood history is not really that simple. And finally, I came across Michael Landon. So for a lot of people, he wasn't just an actor, he felt like someone they grew up with. From Bonanza to Little House on the Prairie to Highway to Heaven, he built stories about family, kindness, and hope. But sadly, Michael Landon died in Malibu in 1991 at only 54. He lived for 3 months after being diagnosed with an inoperable and aggressive form of cancer, and he publicly announced it. I always think that every time you come visit places like this, it feels like some of these stories stay with you. So out of all of these, which story hit you the most? Let me know which ones you want me to look into next. My name is Suri, and I'll see you in the next video.